Right, so thank you for coming, Charlie. My question to you, I mean, I'm a medical student, and so I'm going to throw out the big A word. I know you get asked about it a lot, but I want to hear it from you. Your opinion is on abortion.
Life begins at conception.
But about abortion specifically, why do you think abortion is wrong specifically?
Well, you agree murder is wrong?
I agree. Okay, so this is where we get to the question, right? Because what is it about murder you say is wrong? Like, why is murder wrong?
Well, because it's a human being, not just because it has consciousness or because it's of a certain age, because it's a human.
What is it that gives human being this moral worth?
Not its consciousness necessarily.
I didn't say it's consciousness.
I know that. I can imagine it because it is a human being, because it has a soul.
And what is this soul? Where does this come from? This idea that it's...
Exactly. I mean, again, the Greeks postulated that it is the entirety of your being. Okay, you guys can laugh. I mean, it's true. I mean, every civilization has had a different belief, but agreed upon ethical monotheism, which is the creed of the West and what the birth certificate of my country articulates, that every human being is more than just matter, it's more than just a clump of cells. It also has an invisible element to you that will live beyond you.
Fine, so... I mean, can you say that comes from the Bible, or where else do you get that from?
Ethical monotheism, which is the creed of the West. And again, the Declaration of Independence mentions God 4 times. The founders were explicitly believed, not in a secular morality, but a divinely given one, of at least this idea that there is a God and you are not him. And let me ask you, what is the first stage of human development?
So this is the thing, right? We can take it from sperm being generated in the father and the oocyte being generated in the mother, right? They fuse at birth, conception, sorry. The only thing that happens at conception is these 2 cells fuse.
No, DNA is created. The zygote.
DNA is not created.
No, that's not true. The DNA coding at the zygote. Hold on, time out.
I'll let you finish.
Does a zygote have a unique marker?
Charlie,
does a zygote have a unique marker?
You have to let me speak. You have to
answer it, yes or no. Does a zygote have a unique marker?
Define a unique marker.
Can you differentiate the DNA coding between the mother and the zygote if you examine it under a deoxyribonucleic acid analysis? Can you?
Only purely because the addition comes from the father.
Oh, so it is something different.
Charlie, DNA is not created. DNA is not created. You have, the father has his own genome, the mother has her own genome. They fuse. This is why you have the same characteristics, similar ones to your mother, similar ones to your father. That's why you have similar characteristics to your siblings. DNA is not created, right? So when you ask me, where does a human being come from? I can say to you, it starts at conception, but all conception is 2 cells joining, right? But these 2 cells were created, the mother cells were created long before, they were created when she was a fetus. So there's none of this DNA being produced, right? So we can't establish. The only thing that happens at conception is these 2 cells fuse. Now this idea that means that for some reason suddenly that moral worth comes in, but it wasn't there before when you had these 2 cells who had half the DNA. But suddenly there's
correct. Yes, something magical happens at that.
It's not magical, Charlie. We know about this.
Well, hold on.
Charlie.
Time out. Hold on.
I promise you, I'm not trying to score points. I'm not trying to score points on you. This is genuine.
We call it the miracle of life for a reason. We've not been able to yet replicate human life development outside of the womb.
We call it the miracle of life because yes, it's something beautiful, the ability to form a new...
Magical.
It's not. You say magical as in, it's beautiful, it's an incredible thing that happens, of course. But it's not incredible in the sense we don't know what's going on. There's no new DNA coming out of nowhere.
Hold on, but time out. Isn't there a separate DNA, though, than the mother?
Yes, from the father.
Okay, yes, but it's not the father's DNA either. A new coding is created.
Charlie,
you are a blend of the 2. And so when did your life begin?
Okay, so
when did your life begin?
I mean, again, this comes from what you define as where life starts. You can say life starts at conception, but I'm telling you, I believe that's just an arbitrary point, right? That's just the moment these 2 cells fuse. Now, you say about this mother thing. So the way DNA is arranged in a cell is it's arranged in chromosomes. Chromosomes are paired up, so you have one from the mother, one from the father, typically, in a healthy individual, right? Now, you can take those maternal chromosomes out, and you can find that this is who the person's mother is, and you can do the same with the father. Now, the reason you are different to your mother and father is because some of those chromosomes express genes that are different from each other, and so those genes interact, and that's what gives rise to you, right? But there's no space for any kind of moral framework to come into that until you consider that a human being is capable of consciousness and of suffering. But if you take that out of the equation, the fact that these 2 DNA, whatever they call molecules, right? These 2 DNA molecules are fusing. That does not suddenly flip a switch that attributes moral worth to that individual. just saying, I'm not trying to score points.
Then by what moral standard do you believe that?
I believe that if an individual is capable of suffering, then it's wrong. Now, can I explain my opinion on abortion, just so you can understand? I would agree, as many reasonable people would, that at 9 months, it's unreasonable to expect someone to get an abortion, right? Unless you have some extreme circumstances. But for an elective abortion seems a bit radical to me. But it also seems radical to say that a woman who has just, the cells have just fused, to deny her of an abortion also seems wrong to me. Because that zygote is not capable of suffering, as far as we know.
So by what moral standard? Is that just your opinion? Where did you get that moral standard from?
Because suffering is a bad thing. We all know suffering is a bad thing. That's an objective fact, right?
Hold on. So you do believe in objective morality?
I believe that suffering is an objectively negative.
So if you can't feel it, is it okay?
What do you mean if you can't?
Can't feel the pain, is it okay to inflict the pain?
In the sense that if no one's suffering from it, if you have a scenario where nobody is suffering from something, then yes, of course. There's no a moral. Something is only a moral question if it affects someone's well-being.
So let me just make sure I understand this correctly. That if it doesn't affect their well-being, so dementia patients that don't know who they are or where they're from, can we execute dementia patients because they're confused about their well-being?
Can you imagine a scenario?
Or Alzheimer's patients.
Charlie.
Alzheimer's patients don't really know much about anything. Can we schedule them for execution because they can't technically suffer?
I'll respond. So, can you imagine a scenario where we lived in a society where we killed people when they suffered from dementia, were incapable of suffering, and we killed them, right? It's not a scenario that involves an absence of suffering. There's still suffering involved. Imagine you grow up thinking, my dad could be killed at any moment because he's going to get dementia. Imagine living your life thinking, I could get dementia and suddenly I'd be killed by my state.
Imagine a world where you slaughter 1 million babies every year in America.
But Charlie, it's not slaughter. That's the problem.
Hold on. It's a forcible removal from the umbilical cord of another human life. Again, we have clarity but not agreement. Biologically, you know that your entire coding began at conception. Your coding.
No, that's
or uniqueness.
I'm denying. I disagree with that.
Okay, when those two cells fused together, to use your terminology,
yes.
That is where the process of
scientifically accepted terminology.
In the interest of time, can we bring this question to a close?
The process of human development objectively begins at that moment. Therefore, those human beings are deserving of human rights. We keep going, or do you want to?
No, thank you. Yeah, you can finish.
The process of development begins from the moment the sperm is being generated in the father, the moment the eggs are being generated in the mother. To say that suddenly the moral worth switches on when they fuse doesn't make any sense. That's just a point you...
It makes perfect sense, because that is when your journey as a human being, when the sperm and egg were separate, you were not yet a fused human being. You were not created uniquely.
DNA existed.
Image.
DNA existed. I thought...
Well, no, the parts of your DNA existed. Your DNA did not exist. It's like saying that we have a full car just because we have all the parts. It was not yet put together until conception happens and the zygote was formed. Thank you. I think we have to get...
Can we move on to the next question, please? Thank you. Thank you. Our fourth question tonight is from Rudy Ellis-Jones from Emmanuel College.
头条焦点要来告诉您今天晚间的最新消息 ：Charlie Kirk 枪杀他的嫌犯，在今天晚上终于是逮捕到案了。这是根据美国总统川普稍早公开表示，这一名枪手他不止被逮捕，而且川普还公开的说，希望可以判他死刑。我们来看到这一段最新释出的监视器画面，您可以看到，就在凶嫌犯案之后呢，他在附近的建筑物。就是这个红圈圈起来的黑影哦，他全身黑，而且在犯案之后，他是直接跳 跳下了这一栋建筑物，往附近的丛林奔跑而去，匆匆逃离。而就在稍早，川普宣布，终于是已经逮捕了这名枪手了。而犹他州的州长也公布会在记者会来宣布他的犯案动机哦。而透过最新释出的这2张照片，您可以看到了，这一名凶嫌呢，他在犯案当下，他穿的是黑色的 T 恤，戴着的是黑色的帽子，还有太阳眼镜。而这件 T 恤，你可以看到上面的 logo 不只是美国的国旗，而且在美国的国旗上方还有一只黑色的老鹰，这是不是也成为了破案的关键呢？为了要迅速逮到这一名枪手哦 ，FBI 它不只是寄出了赏金10万美元，而且还同步释出了这一段画面，希望大家能够尽快的追捕到这名凶手。那也还好，在今天晚上是终于逮到了这一名嫌犯了。但是这起案件其实最恐怖的并不是枪击案本身，而是在这一起枪击案的背后，是不是也代表着美国政治动荡激增的分水岭呢？根据《华尔街日报》的报道来进一步的分析，说从川普去年2度遭遇暗杀之后，再到现在 Kirk 遭遇刺杀案，这是不是会进一步的演变成美国的政治暴力，变成最新最可怕的日常？而暴力是不是也成为了全美公众人物持续受到公然威胁的表征呢？而在这段报道里面也提到说 ，Kirk 遇害势必会让分裂的国家深陷党派的壁垒。其实包含像是了国会的警察也释出了最新的数据，我们做成了这张统计图表，要来带您看到的是对国会的议员，还有国会议员的家人，以及国会议员的职员威胁事件，在2017年还是小于4000，不到4000件的。但是您可以看到，一直到了2023年，马上就激增了2倍，到了8000件。甚至到了去年，已经来到了9500件了，已经整整超过了2倍之多。到明年会不会就直接破1万件了呢？而在今年上半年，因为政治动机所产生的攻击事件，就已经达到了150件。意识形态的对立是否也变成了进一步深层的仇恨了呢？也会不会为美国的政治局势带来全新的变化？我们来看这段报道。
美国总统川普盟友31岁的保守派政治网红科克，在犹他州大学校园遇刺身亡第3天，凶手依然在逃。FBI 美国联邦调查局和警方在当地展开大搜索，但至今显然还没有掌握凶手踪迹。
We cannot do our job without the public's help right now. The public has answered our call for action. So far, we've received more than 7,000 leads and tips.
FBI 悬赏10万美元，约台币300万。局长也亲赴犹他州了解。官方接连公布嫌疑人照片和影片。外表如大学生的男子身穿长袖黑色 T 恤，上面印着白头鹰和美国国旗图案，戴墨镜和深色棒球帽。第2组照片则可以看出男子身材瘦削，背着背包，脚上穿 Converse 球鞋。官方公布的画面显示，一名男子从狙击的屋顶爬下来，穿过草坪，行经停车场，进入校园旁的林区。调查人员也在里面发现了作案用枪支。
Is a high-powered bolt-action rifle. That rifle was recovered in a wooded area where the shooter had fled.
据了解，作案枪支和弹药上刻有跨性别和反法西斯意识形态讯息，不过凶手动机尚未公布。
Do you have any indication of the shooter's motivation, sir?
I have an indication, yeah, but we'll let you know about that later.
犹他州官员也透露，男子在爬下屋顶时留下了掌印和 DNA。这起震撼全美的枪击案就发生在盐湖城南边约65公里的犹他谷大学。科克主持名为“证明我错了”的户外辩论，现场有3000人。凶手在活动开始几分钟前抵达校园。
Starting at 11:52 a.m., the subject arrived on campus through the stairwells, up to the roof, across the roof to a shooting location.
约30分钟后，当地时间12点20分，当科克开始回答枪支暴力问题，他颈部中枪。当时对他提问的人近距离